Just absolutely amazing. And one of the big ironies of all, GE had introduced the modern evolution of the new incandescent light bulb that was here to stay. And guess what we're doing with it next year? GE's gone as far as the light bulb company, and so is the incandescent light bulb. But that was what was happening in 1946. Stop, eat, and get gas. That's kind of what we did tonight, isn't it? Okay, back to Aldebaran, the bright star. We'll forget it for now. Here's the Hyades, the star cluster. 150 light years away. Look how fast we're moving in time now. All right, real quickly, 150 years ago. Come on, quick. Civil War. You're right. Another dadgum war. And what did I just do? There's the war. Abraham Lincoln was about to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Pony Express was still in its heyday. And yes, we were still at war. One of the worst ones the nation has ever seen. The United States Capitol had not even been completed when the light left the stars of the Hyades in the star cluster in Taurus. And then we have the beautiful star Albireo. I mean, it's up overhead right now. And this is always one of the favorites at star parties. It really looks like that through a telescope. You know, gold and blue. And it's just so remarkable to see that. But 390 years old, that light is. So when that light fell in that camera, what was happening?
Pilgrims?
What?
No. Pilgrims?
You're not going to... Oh.
Pilgrims?
Look at you. Good for you. Pilgrims. The Pilgrims were landing at Plymouth Rock. The United States was about to get started. But look at the rest of it here. Galileo was just now, discovering all this stuff that revolutionized astronomy. You know, the craters on the moon, the spots on the sun, the 4 Galilean satellites, the rings of Saturn, and nobody believed him 390 years ago. So next time you show all your guys the Albireo in your telescopes, say, let me tell you what was happening 390 years ago when that light left that you're looking at right now. That light was born with Galileo's declaration of all these things that were blown out by the Catholic Church. And we move even further. We're just getting further and further out. 440 light years to the Pleiades. This is the most beautiful object in the sky. You can see it naked eye. It's also called the Seven Sisters, for those of you who are not sky watchers. You may have heard that name in historical lore. And it's a naked eye cluster. A lot of people mistake it for the Little Dipper, which it's not. But it's just an absolutely gorgeous thing. It looks like this in a pair of binoculars, maybe not quite as cloudy looking. But 440 years ago, that's kind of a hard one to figure out quickly, isn't it? What might have been going on 440 years ago? It was a mess. It was just an absolute mess. Ivan the Terrible was, just absolutely dominating all the lands over there. People couldn't settle. They had to move constantly because of him and his troops. The one that I love, and of course we still believed, it would be 25 years from now before scientists and the church would recognize the fact that the Earth did not occupy the center of the universe. The Earth at that point was still the center of the universe. And it was not until 25 years later that Copernicus' suggestion that the sun was the center of the solar system, he didn't worry about the universe. He wasn't aware of the universe per se, but he knew darn well that the sun did not revolve around the Earth. And nobody believed him for another 25 years. But this one down here in the lower left, I just love this. Johannes Kepler was a madman, but he was a brilliant scientist. And he's the one that kind of came up with how all the planets move around the sun in their orbits. And I guess the guy had a lot of time on his hands because he almost read an entire manuscript on when he was conceived. The very date that he was conceived. He had it figured out mathematically. And he figured out that he was conceived on, I thought I had the date down there, but it was in 1570. He was convinced that he was conceived in 1570. Still getting further. We're going past Antares now, which is a bright star in the constellation of Scorpius. We've traveled 519 light years in our spaceship going at the speed of light. 519 years. What was going on? Oh my gosh. 519. Christopher Columbus was in the news. Here he is. Not only did he set forth for his explorations, but he also discovered the Americas the same year, and lo and behold, he discovered corn too. So he's a very, very fine guy in everybody's book here in the United States. And more importantly, the lead pencil was created in the same year. The Dumbbell Nebula, look at the difference now. We're really moving into space, and we're still close. 1,251 light years away. 1,251. And folks, that's close. We had no civilizations over here to speak of in terms of modern culture. The mound builders were at their height throughout North America. People were still living in caves, literally, in the river valleys of the United States. It would be almost 100, 200 more years before they had any interaction with modern society at all, and it would be their downfall from then on. Pit stop time. See, I do this for me, not for you. The Great Orion Nebula. We all show people this at our star parties. You've seen this in books. You've seen it on TV. It's been in Star Trek. One of the most remarkable features of the night sky. Almost 1,400 light years away. And boy, what a sad time. Again, war. The Arabs invaded Alexandria, destroyed the library that held the secrets of the very first records of the development of civilizations on Earth, and they're gone forever. You know, once again, a marker, and it's not a particularly happy one. And in the same constellation as the Orion Nebula, we have the bright star Betelgeuse. That's this one here. That's just it's actually not an artist enhancement. It's a photograph of the star taken through the Earth's atmosphere to show how turbulent our own air is. But at 1,500 light years, we were in the middle of the Dark Ages. Sad time for the entire world. Death, famine, disease, tyranny. It was a very, very sad time. The North American Nebula, one of the most beautiful things in the sky, 2,010 light years away. Ring a bell to anybody?
Millennium.
That's right, the birth of Christ. 2,010 years ago. Isn't that cool? And shortly before that, Caesar became Caesar Augustus and gained supreme rule over the Roman Empire. And Cleopatra had decided she didn't want to live any longer and had to ask Biter. And we were sadly rid of her for a while, I guess. 2,260 years, the Ring Nebula, another favorite among any telescope viewers. But we're going to take a pit stop here for just a minute again. Houston, we have a problem. I love the toilet paper rolling out of the outhouse. It was the first recorded passage of Halley's Comet. And Halley's has been around every year faithfully for every passage for 76 years since. The very first passage of that. And again, more war. The Romans were taking over the civilized world at that particular time. We move further to the Owl Nebula, another planetary nebula where a star has exploded. When that light, that picture, when that gorgeous light left that planetary nebula, this is what was going on. More war. The Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem, the biblical reference to Jerusalem. And rock art was the only form of communication in North America. Native Americans were painting on rocks to be able to communicate with one another. 5,000 light years away. We were at the height of the Egyptian pyramid culture. The Giza culture was at its height 5,000 years ago when the light left the Trifid Nebula headed this way. The Crab Nebula, 5,500 light years away, or 200 light years away. The Mayan calendar, that's going to be in the news next year. That's actually when it started. August 13th, the Mayan calendar got started. That's pretty cool, you know. And the same time that light left the Crab Nebula, you know, and we see it tonight in our telescopes, the Mayans were out creating this calendar that's supposed to end the world. So by the time we figure out what the calendar is going to be doing to us, we'll have to go out and take a look at the Crab Nebula right before it happens. But there's a problem. Some of you realize that the Crab Nebula is the remnant of the great supernova in 1054 because the monks saw it, and some of the Chinese saw it, and some of the Native Americans actually have rock art that shows the explosion in 1054. So how do we work this? I've already said that the Crab Nebula is 5,225 light years away. That light has been on its way for 5,225 years. Okay, that's what you see tonight if you look out. But just less than 1,000 years ago, monks and Chinese and Native Americans saw an explosion in this same part of the sky. So are we talking about the same thing? Of course we are. What they saw was the event. And in only 1,000 years, we've seen that explosion expand into the greatness of the Crab Nebula. Moving out into the Milky Way of our own galaxy, 6,000 light years away is this distant star cluster. And it was 6,000 years ago that the Eurasians finally developed the horse. They were able to get it to where they could use it for something useful. You have to think about this when you get it, folks. This may not be obvious to everybody. I won't dwell on it. Bathroom humor just kind of eludes me anyway. Another cluster similar is the great Messier 22 in Sagittarius. 10,000 light years. We all should know what happened 10,000 years ago. Anybody who is a college student should. That's right. It was the Ice Age. And we lost the woolly mammoth. We lost a lot of other species. The Laurentide ice sheet shut down the development of the human race for a long time, but soon it cleared up. Interestingly, at the same time was the very beginning of the Egyptian pyramid culture. So, there are so many missing links in history, and you can all relate it to the benchmarks of the sky. Messier 13. This is one of my favorite objects. This is the star party favorite. This actually sort of looks like this in telescopes. At a distance of 25,000 light years. 25,000 light years away, and that is only halfway across our galaxy. Okay? We're still in our own Milky Way galaxy. 25,000 years ago, we had just started migrating as human beings across the Bering Strait and down into the Americas to populate North America, Mexico, and South America. That's a remarkable thing to think about. 25,000 years ago, that light you just saw from that brilliant star cluster, and these people were walking across the Bering Strait when that light started coming at us. Now, there's an interesting fact about Messier 13 at 25,000 light years away. Some of you have heard me say this before, but it bears saying again. In 1973, the Arecibo radio telescope, Carl Sagan, the noted astronomer so many of us know and love, was partly responsible for this. In 1973, he decided, or a team of scientists decided, we needed to take time out of the broadcast or the listening of the Arecibo radio telescope to beam a message into space. And it was a 3-second message. And it was in binary code, and in that 3 seconds it contained the basic genetic structure of the human body, a little bit about where planet Earth is, where the sun is in the solar system, in the Milky Way galaxy, just basic information, raw information in mathematical form about the human race and where it is and how long it's been around. Okay, so we took 3 seconds out of the busy schedule of Arecibo to beam this thing out there, and we aimed it at Messier 13. Okay, let's think this through for just a minute, which obviously whoever designed this did not. Okay, 25,000 light years away. Radio waves travel at the same speed as light, 186,000 miles a second. We shoot this beam into space, 3 seconds, this little burst, and it goes traveling through space at 186,000 miles a second. In 25,000 years, it gets to Messier 13. Now, here's the deal. We call it the buckshot approach. Where are we going to send our... I can see them sitting around a round table and scratching their heads and people bringing them coffee. Where are we going to send this? We're going to take 3 seconds. Okay, everybody pick a place where you want to send it to. Where do you want to send it to, Carl? Oh, I don't care. Let's send it to the Lagoon Nebula, and somebody else has another idea. So they came up with Messier 13, buckshot. It's got lots more stars in it, probably up to 400,000 stars in it, and 400 million stars in it, because the odds of hitting something with our 3-second burst of energy are much better than it would be if we sent it to a single star. Well, what poppycock. Scientists have learned, and we even knew this then, that these things, the star clusters like this are so close together, the stars are so close in terms of the bigness of space, that the gravitational field between all of those stars is so great that there cannot be planets anywhere in the sphere of these star clusters. It's impossible. The tidal forces would suck up anything into the stars themselves. So what do? We send this 3-second burst of energy, our only message ever, into space. We send it out here for 25,000 years. It's going to reach there, and it's going to bounce around a couple of stars. Let's just say that there might just be one planet that did get sucked up into one of these stars. And these people are sitting around, and they've got their little FM radio going, and they happen to be tuned into exactly the right frequency, exactly at 3 seconds when that message gets there. Okay, they just happen to be eating dinner, let's say, and they've got the FM radio going, and they receive this message, 3 seconds, and they think it's anything but space junk, noise, white noise. You know, like you get on your TV or your radio sometimes. If you got satellite, like we do, you know what I'm talking about. These little bursts, and you think, oh my gosh, well, that wasn't a message from space. That was just space noise, or just noise. So 25,000 years from now, they get this message. They're going to say, hey, that is a message from space and Earth, and we're going to send one back. So they go to their Arecibo radio telescope, and they beam us back a similar message and say, got your message, kids are fine. Come see us when you can. And it's going to take 25,000 years to get back to us, 50,000 years round trip. Who is going to remember to listen? Not any of us are going to be around. Nobody even wrote it down, probably. Nobody is going to remember. It's going to be one of the long-lost things. So it's just one of these political things that just irritate the fire out of me, so I had to bring it up. We still have a long way to go, but it goes quicker. I know that's oxymoronic, but it does go quicker. As I said, we've only gone halfway across our Milky Way galaxy. This is a composite photograph taken by a very smart guy that knows how to use digital stitching. This is our Milky Way galaxy, where we live. We have gone halfway across this thing now, and we're still in our own stellar neighborhood. We have a long way to go. Our Milky Way galaxy, star to star, is about 100,000, a little bit more than 100,000 light years across. So to go all the way across, it would take 100,000 years. But to reach the very edge of our Milky Way galaxy, its gravitational influence, and literally the edge of space, takes 1 million years at the speed of light to get to that point. To get out of our own galaxy, 1 million years, traveling at 186,000 miles a second. Okay, that is a long way. And when we get to that point, as this sort of demonstrates, you suddenly enter the world of nothingness. There's nothing there. It's empty. Way off in the distance, you see mystery objects. 1 million years ago, we had people on this planet. The human race was in development. Okay? 1 million years ago, the human race was on its way. And little known to a lot of people, I've studied a lot of archaeology and anthropology. And one of the interesting things that I have searched and researched is the fact that the human race was on the verge of extinction 1 million years ago. We almost died out. We almost didn't make it. No one is real sure what happened. But the decline in the overall movement and environment and so forth, the human race was just about history. We don't know why. I have a theory. The family picnic. So we leave the abyss of space. We travel all the way across that dark void, and suddenly we reach those odd light forms out there. Those are other galaxies, very similar to our own. The closest one that looks like our own is the Andromeda Galaxy, 2.5 million light years away. And it's filled with suns, just like our own Milky Way galaxy. It has planets, it has comets, it has probably Earths or Earth-like structures within it. 2.5 million years ago, it was the first time that stone tools were being used on Earth. You can actually look at Andromeda. You can see it naked eye. You know, it's the only external object in the northern hemisphere that you can actually see with the naked eye outside of our own galaxy. And you could look at that thing and you think, I'm looking at the light while these guys were sitting around, hopefully campfires, trying to pound out something to survive with. It's a pretty awesome thought. And even further, the galaxies just get further and further. Andromeda is the closest. 12 million light years to these two popular galaxies. We were just then human. We were just becoming human when the light left those two galaxies. 30 million light years away. The very first primates entered the scene on planet Earth 30 million years ago. And we have objects out there in space that have been sending us their light all this time for us to just now see. The dog and the cat were suddenly appearing on the scene. Double the distance, 64 million miles away. This galaxy, what was happening on Earth when the light left that galaxy?
Dinosaurs.
The end of the dinosaurs. The comet, or asteroid that hit the Earth and caused the extinction of nearly everything on it. It could have stopped the evolution of biology on the planet. Fortunately, it did not. And then we're up to a whopping 300. And now keep in mind, there's galaxies that every light year you've got another galaxy. 322 million light years away. And everything you see in this picture is a galaxy. This is a galaxy supercluster. At a distance of 322 million light years, this is from Hubble. Hubble saw this light when we still had the original mother planet, before the continents divided. At that time, insects were beginning to populate the Earth. There were no people, there were no dinosaurs. There were some small sharks that swam in the seas. There were no land creatures other than insects. But there were animals that did want to walk on the Earth, and that's when it started. Lenny, we know you're faking. The superclusters of galaxies, billions of light years away. Billions. We're talking now about the time the Earth doesn't even matter anymore, practically. A billion years ago, when light came from the superclusters of galaxies that are on the very edge of our known universe. We're approaching the end of the universe, or the beginning of another universe. We don't know which. The first multi-celled organisms. We find these in Arkansas even. We have massive fossil fields full of these things. You know, we begin to develop an atmosphere, both from lightning, from volcanic eruptions, and plant growth tried to start at least a little bit. Even further, 5 billion light years in space, we enter the realm of X-ray explosions, galaxies that are incredibly unstable. Why are they unstable? They're unstable simply because they are the remnants of the original creation. Those galaxies still suffer from the impact, the actual force of creation. So there's a lot more chaos involved in their structures the further you get out toward the very edge of the universe. 5 billion years ago, while all this was going on, the Earth-Moon system was beginning to form. We, as most scientists think, we separated from the moon at that time. You know, some people say they formed independently, but it's beginning to look now like we were one large, elongated body, and we separated about 5 billion years ago. And then we look even further into space, and Hubble sees another remarkable picture, the Virgo supercluster. 13 billion. Again, we're getting into numbers we really can't comprehend. That's how old that light is that you're looking at right there. 13 billion years ago. Our sun was starting to be formed. We didn't have planets. There were no moons. There were no comets. There was no Oort cloud. The sun itself was beginning to form. And after you've been on the beach, this is a must. 15 billion years ago, we begin to see the realm of where the quasars, again, unstable, highly unstable objects that are out near the fringes of space. Very erratic and very well, totally misunderstood. At that time, we had no Earth. There was nothing that existed in our solar neighborhood. No Earth, no sun, no planets. We don't even have to talk about history. We don't have to talk about what was going on that we can relate to, because there was nothing that we can relate to. Let's go deeper. 18 billion light years away. We're looking at the very edge of the beginning of creation itself. 18 billion light years. This is a Hubble picture of the farthest objects known in space. 18 billion years ago. And we think we're still living in a very, very young and developing universe. At that time, there were no solar systems, no galaxies, no stars, just those things on the very fringe, those initial galaxies from the original creation. 18 billion years ago, stuff as we know it was created. And that's a scientific term. It really is. We don't have a clue what stuff was. The primordial atom, whatever it caused the explosion, we don't understand. We don't know how it got put where it was. I personally believe in God, and I also believe in the Big Bang Theory. I believe in evolution. I believe in God, and it can happen. It's a very convenient truth, I suppose. And we had the Big Bang. And then we reach a point 30 billion years ago, the very creation of all space and time as we know it. 30 billion years ago, there was not a primordial atom. 30 billion years ago, there was no space to put the primordial atom in. 30 billion years ago, there was not a moment in time at which the primordial atom could explode. 30 billion years ago, there was no energy to cause an explosion of the primordial atom, and yet it happened. No galaxies, no light, no primordial atom, absolutely nothing. I used to do a seminar that was a sort of a space-related consciousness thing. And one of the things I asked people to do, and we would darken the room, would be to close your eyes, and as best you can, erase everything in your mind. Try not to think of anything. Try not to think about the person sitting next to you, about what you just thought about, what you have to do when you leave here. Think about nothing. It is physically impossible because we're all the creatures of all the history that you've just seen. Everything that exists makes up the mentality of our own bodies. So at a distance of 30 billion light years, in a time of 30 billion years, our journey's over. Anybody have any questions? Okay, covered it all, didn't it? All right. I like that.
Let's get that in a minute. Thanks, Dr. Clay. Appreciate you coming again this year. Very enlightening presentation. And I want to thank Dr. Clay's wife, Patsy, for allowing him and to spend some time here with us.
To let me out.
To let him out a little bit. I believe we're going to have some scopes set up outside, aren't we, Dr. Wood?
Yeah, we're going to be imaging the moon and Jupiter right outside over here. We're having to set up over here because Jupiter would be behind the building if we set up in a normal place on the other side of the planetarium.
So back out in the parking lot.
Yeah,
Fine.
we have some scopes set up there if people want to take a look.
Well, I get John to help set the scope and then we'll
Coming up right now,
Okay,
look
I'll try.
northeast, that big bright thing, that's Jupiter.
Well, please hang around if you've got the time, and thanks for coming out tonight. Dr.